Welcome to the deep dive. So today we're jumping into a question that, honestly, based on the notes and articles you shared, seems to be a really big sticking point for a lot of you. It's this: is grammar really necessary to speak English fluently? You've mentioned feeling kind of held back by grammar, maybe freezing up sometimes, even when you know the words, right? Even when you understand what you hear. So we've really dug into the material you sent over, and we're here to unpack what we found. It might actually change how you think about getting fluent in English. Okay, let's get into it.
Right. So, first things first, let's maybe push back on a really common idea. When we say fluent in English, what are we actually talking about? Because a lot of people, and I think this definitely came through in your reflections, they assume it means speaking perfectly, like zero grammar mistakes, any little error, and boom, you're not fluent. But is that really accurate?
Yeah, it's a super common belief, but honestly, the linguistic stuff you flagged, it really argues against that. Fluency, like at its heart, isn't about getting rid of every single mistake. It's more defined by, being able to get your ideas across confidently, clearly, without those long, awkward pauses or causing confusion. Fundamentally, it's communication, it's connection, not a grammatical perfection.
That focus on communication makes so much sense, especially thinking about that freezing feeling you described. Let's maybe paint a picture here. Imagine two English learners. Okay, learner A knows all the grammar rules, past perfect, future continuous, passive voice. They've memorized it all. But when they actually try to speak, they just seize up, overthinking every word. Then you got learner B. Maybe they only know the basic grammar, core tenses, simple structures, but they can actually hold a conversation. It flows pretty naturally, good rhythm, even if there are small mistakes sprinkled in. Now, who sounds more fluent to you? It's learner B, right? Hands down. Because like one of the studies you pointed out mentioned, fluency is about getting the message across. I mean, think about it. If someone says, yesterday I go to the market, I buy apples, is perfect grammar? No way. But did you understand them? Completely. Was the message clear? Absolutely. That's a kind of fluency right there.
So, okay, that leaves us to the big one. Is grammar even necessary then? And the honest answer, yes, it is. But maybe not all of it, and definitely not perfectly. If we think bigger picture, grammar is sort of like the skeleton of the language, right? The structure. It's what holds everything together and, crucially, makes what you say understandable. Without at least that basic structure, you just have, a jumble of words. Communication starts to break down.
Oh yeah, you can really hear it when that structure is missing. Like try understanding sentences like, I go yesterday to market, or maybe, he no like coffee, or even something more tangled like, he go in store now. I think maybe she happy now. Yeah. You might maybe get the general idea, but it's hard work for the listener, isn't it? It sounds really disjointed, almost like trying to decode something.
Exactly. That skeletal structure, that basic grammar, is what lets you talk about time properly, past, present, future. It helps you ask questions clearly, describe things, talk about feelings, opinions, and ultimately it helps you sound natural, not like a robot just stringing words together. It's the framework for clarity. And I know you mentioned wanting to sound more natural in your notes. This is key.
Okay, and this is where it gets really practical, I think, because you don't need to master every tiny grammar rule to sound fluent. What you need is to actually use the essential stuff. It's a bit like learning to drive. You could read the whole manual, memorize every single traffic law, but until you get behind the wheel and actually start driving, you're not a driver. Grammar is kind of the same. Reading about it isn't enough. You have to put it into action, into speech.
Right. And that connects directly to the practical side of things, the learning methods you were looking into. If you boil it down, there's like an essential 20% of grammar. Think of it as your fluency grammar toolkit. This core stuff gives you maybe 80% of the results you need for everyday conversation, which then raises the really important question: what grammar should you actually be focusing on?
Yeah, this is so crucial for avoiding that overthinking paralysis. You really don't need to spend years trying to memorize every obscure tense or, the third conditional passive voice or whatever. Focus on the grammar points that pop up constantly in daily chat. So what's actually in that toolkit? Well, we're talking about things like the present simple and continuous. As some of the language learning articles you shared pointed out, these are like your workhorses, right? Talking about facts, habits, what's happening now, the core of describing your life. Then, the past simple, absolutely vital for telling any kind of story about what happened. Basic future forms, going to, will, for plans, predictions, everyday stuff. Modal verbs, can, should, must. Expressing ability, giving advice, saying something's necessary. Super common. Basic question forms, knowing how to ask what, where, when, why. Fundamental. Conditionals, especially the first and second. If it rains, if I had more time. Really useful for talking possibilities. And then, just getting basic word order right. Subject plus verb plus object. Plus enough articles, pronouns, prepositions to make sense, just enough to be clear.
Exactly. And what's really interesting here is the shift in focus. The goal isn't memorizing, 100 plus obscure rules or mastering things like the passive voice or past perfect continuous, which, let's be honest, are used way more in formal writing than in casual chat. No, the goal is having enough grammar to say what you mean clearly, ask questions without sounding awkward, and actually understand native speakers in normal, everyday situations. It moves the goalposts from, academic perfection to just effective real-world communication.
Okay, so let's push this idea of perfect grammar even further. Do you honestly think all native English speakers use perfect grammar all the time when they talk? Really think about it. What do fluent speakers actually sound like day to day?
This is kind of the big secret, isn't it? Something many learners don't quite clock, but it was hinted at in some of those informal language resources you looked at. Most native speakers absolutely do not use perfect grammar when they speak casually. It's just not how it works. We say stuff like, me and my friend went to the shop all the time, even though technically it should be my friend and I. You hear things like, ain't no way I'm doing that. Oh, people using, constantly. It's like, what? I literally hear someone say, I see it yesterday, this morning. Which is, technically wrong. And classics like, ain't nobody got time for that. These aren't textbook examples, but they're everywhere. They're understood. Spoken language it's flexible. It's fast. It's relaxed. It doesn't always follow the strict rules.
Right, which is why fluency isn't just grammar, is it? It's got to be more. It's that mix grammar plus vocabulary plus rhythm. It's like music, maybe. You can know all the notes, theoretically. But if your rhythm's all off, it just won't sound right. It won't flow. You need enough grammar for clarity, enough words to express yourself, and then that natural rhythm and flow to make it sound smooth, engaging.
That's a great analogy. Because natural fluency, as those articles on spoken language you found really emphasize, goes way beyond just the formal grammar rules you learn in a book. It involves using chunks of language, these sort of pre-made phrases like, let me see, or you know what I mean? People use them automatically without thinking about the individual grammar bits inside. It also relies heavily on phrasal verbs. Yeah, they can be tricky, but things like figure out, hang on, catch up are absolutely essential for sounding natural. And then there's connected speech, how sounds blend together. So what are you doing? Often sounds more like what you're doing in fast speech. The advice that comes out of this, basically copy how fluent people actually talk. Listen to the rhythm, the way they group words. Imitate that, don't just stare at grammar tables.
Okay, so pulling this all together, where do learners often get tripped up? And maybe you felt this yourself. It seems to be this obsession with getting every grammar point perfect, wanting 100% correctness before speaking. And the result, it just stops people from speaking at all, creates that block. So what does this actually mean for you practically? How do you move past that fear of grammar mistakes?
Right, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? How do you break free from that perfection trap, especially when that desire to be correct feels so strong? Based on some of the psychological stuff about language learning you mentioned in your notes, here are a few concrete things to try. 1, speak before you feel 100% ready. Seriously, don't wait for grammar mastery. Just start talking now. Make mistakes. Because honestly, the research backs this up. Mistakes aren't failures. They're just data. They show you where to improve next. 2, try to absorb grammar naturally through actual conversations, watching TV shows, listening to how people really talk. Copy them. Shadow conversations. It's often more effective than just textbook exercises. 3, keep your focus squarely on communication. Did the other person get your meaning? Yes. Good. That's success. That's the real measure. 4, maybe try recording yourself speaking. Just talk about your day or something you like for a minute or two, then listen back. You'll start noticing your own patterns, not just errors, but also things you're doing well. 5, learn in chunks.
Instead of memorizing isolated rules, try grabbing whole phrases like, I've been meaning to, or I'm not sure, but I think, or what do you reckon? See how grammar works in context. And lastly, maybe the hardest one. Try not to stop and correct every single mistake while you're talking. Just keep the flow going. Fluency is about momentum, not constant editing.
What really jumps out at me from all this is just how liberating it should feel. Making mistakes isn't some sign of weakness or failure. It's literally a sign we're learning, you're progressing. Every single fluent speaker, including native speakers, makes slips. You're not aiming for this impossible standard of perfection. You're just aiming to communicate better each time. And honestly, people are generally not sitting there judging your grammar. Most are just impressed you're speaking another language. They want to connect with you, the person, not dissect your sentence structure.
Absolutely. So if you bring it all back to that core truth, the one that really runs through all the different sources you gathered, yes, grammar is important. especially those core essential pieces. But, and this is the big but, it is absolutely not the ultimate goal. And you definitely don't need to master it perfectly before you can start speaking fluently. The real goal, the thing we can't emphasize enough, is communication. It's expressing yourself, telling your story, connecting with other human beings. Just think about it. Who sounds more fluent? Someone who speaks bravely, connects with you, maybe makes a few small mistakes, or someone who knows all the rules, but is too afraid of errors to actually say much.
Exactly. And that's the real challenge we want to leave you with, the listener. It's a message that echoed your own thoughts on this. Stop chasing grammatical perfection. Start chasing connection. Don't let grammar be this invisible wall that keeps you silent. See it for what it is. A tool, a helpful tool, yes, but just a tool to make your message clearer, to make your stories richer. So speak. Speak boldly, make those mistakes, maybe even learn to laugh at them sometimes, because truly every sentence you manage to speak, every conversation you have, even the imperfect ones, they're all steps towards real fluency. So here's a final thought to mull over. If fluency really is more about connection, about courageous action than it is about perfect grammar, what conversations are you ready to start now, knowing that every attempt, every mistake is actually moving you closer?